Welcome back to Tech Talks from Commercial Baking. I'm your host, Maddie Lambert. In this episode, sponsored by the National Honey Board, I'm speaking with Keith Size, Ingredient Marketing Representative, and we are talking about the functionality of honey in baked goods. Keith, it's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Are you ready to talk all things honey?
I'm always ready to talk all things honey.
Okay, so I want to start our conversation off by talking about how bakers use honey to help boost a product's shelf life in a clean label way. So, can you tell me more about the role that honey plays in maintaining freshness during storage?
Definitely. It's one of the things that a lot of people don't know, especially bakers, whenever they use honey, that the choice of their sweetener is going to have a potential impact on sort of how their product tastes, the texture of it over the shelf life. So, honey's a humectant. What that means is it not only holds on to moisture in a formula, but it's also grabbing moisture from the environment. So those two things, whenever you put it in a bread, whenever you put it in a cookie, in a snack cake, not only is it holding on to that moisture that already exists in that formula, but any moisture inside the packaging and the environment, it's going to slowly start pulling it in. So whenever you use honey, yes, you're getting the typical sweetness and the flavor that you love, but you're also getting this product that's going to maintain a softer, more moist texture for a long period of time. That's just one of the reasons. The other reasons is honey is an acidic ingredient, which most people don't realize. It has got a pH of 3.9, which puts it right between vinegar and tomato on the pH scale. So those acids help prevent against some sort of molds and microbials that may grow inside of a product. Now, it's not going to, if you use honey, it's not going to say you're never going to get a moldy product, but it is going to delay some of those things. Honey also has kind of the precursor to hydrogen peroxide in it. So it's another thing. It's why you always hear honey is something to do use with wound care. But this also helps prevent some forms of molding. So by just changing your sweetener and using honey, you're not adding anything that's going to go away from clean label. Plus, you're also going to get a little bit of shelf life extension on your product.
Oh, absolutely. So, first of all, I didn't know that it fell in between a tomato and vinegar on the pH scale. That is crazy
Yeah.
to me. I never even realized that.
Yeah, and it's only the acids in honey only account for 0.5% of its solids. So it's not a huge load, but the acids are strong enough to where they do a lot of magical things. It's also why honey kind of has that unique taste and almost this freshness pop to it is because you're not only getting the carbohydrate load, but you're also getting an acidic background note. So it makes it just a more dynamic and complex flavor.
Wow. Okay. So I want to switch gears to hone in on the baking process specifically. So can you tell me how bakers use honey as a binding ingredient when they're making products like breads, like you said, bars, cookies, and any other baked good?
Yeah, the big use of honey as a binder is really in the bar and granola industry. Looking at food bars first, the popularity of these now are going more towards nut and seed dense bar with dried fruit in them, just because those are all clean label ingredients that consumers aren't necessarily going to shy away from. But you need something to keep all those things together. And in the past, there's a variety of syrups or binders you can use, but a lot of those things were kind of didn't look great on an ingredient deck. Whereas you have an ingredient like honey, just due to its natural viscosity, due to its natural concentrations of sugar versus 17.1% moisture, it's going to be able to keep all of these ingredients together in a cohesive mold. So there's many very popular bars on the marketplace that are currently using honey in this matter, but it's also something that can be used in the granola to really control cluster size. So, there's all sorts of types of granola. Some is completely loose where it just seems like oats are running around free and no kind of cohesiveness. And others, there's big clusters one way to kind of modify your cluster shape is by looking at the amount of honey you use. So by adding this honey, the greater the level, the more clusters you're going to get. But it's also interesting because as a binder, it's also has this moisture in it. So it's not just becoming a gloopy mess. It's holding together, but it also has a bit of a chew to it. So it can be used in a whole bunch of different ways to kind of bind various things together.
We're definitely going to come back to the chew part because I know honey plays a huge role in texture and mouthfeel, but
Yep.
I
Mhm.
want to go back to something you said. So, how does honey influence the appearance of the finished product when compared with other sweeteners?
Yep. So honey is a carbohydrate just like any other sweetener that will be used in the baking industry. What's unique about honey is it has more than 25 different carbohydrates in it. So there's everything from monosaccharides like fructose and glucose, which are the two largest sugars in honey, to disaccharides, to trisaccharides, this super complex sugars. All these different sugars perform a whole bunch of different functions in honey. But on the appearance level, the two biggest sugars are fructose and glucose, which are monosaccharides. So any sweetener is going to kind of contribute to the Maillard reaction or the browning of a loaf of bread. Because honey is made up mostly of these two monosaccharide simple sugars, they're going to have a much more robust and intense Maillard reaction, which is going to add more browning, more roasty notes, those notes we love about baked goods, especially breads, quicker. This is great for flavor. On the flip side, it does create a browner loaf just because it's a much more intense Maillard reaction. So if you don't want a loaf as brown, bakers can do anything from lowering the temperature of their oven or just baking for a shorter amount of time to still maintain maybe a more golden color that they wanted. But the big benefit, which can be even in a product like granola, is just those roasty toasted notes that you're going to get whenever honey is baked in a product is going to be, add a whole lot of complexity and deliciousness to a formula.
Absolutely. The clean label aspect is huge with consumers right now as well.
Yep,
And honey already has such a good reputation. And I feel like the browning effect also lends to an idea, a perceived idea of freshness, obviously, like fresh
definitely.
bakery. And so, yeah, honey is a great attribute for that as well.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, so tell me about how R&D teams can use honey to balance or soften some of those stronger flavors in a recipe or a formulation.
Yeah, this is something we are really kind of answering, or I'm answering countless calls from bakeries. A lot of it focused on everybody wants to create a high protein or high fiber loaf, or just add more protein or fiber to a product. Uh, Adding those things can be done, but then adding those and making them taste well is a significant challenge. If you're using, plant-based proteins, so say some sort of combination of soy protein, pea protein, whatever you decide to go with, all of those things are going to carry off flavors. It's impossible to kind of make them without having a earthy, beany flavor to it. Even if you're using a dairy protein like whey protein, you're going to get a bit of a chalkiness to it and a dairy flavor profile that really most consumers don't want in their bread or sweet good. So you've got a problem where you've elevated the protein level up by adding these ingredients, but you've created off flavors. So the natural thing to do is add sweetness to kind of mask those things. Where honey differs from other sweeteners, as I mentioned earlier, there's 25 different sugars in honey. So most sweeteners that a baker are going to use consist of just one carbohydrate. So it's going to cause a kind of immediate sweetness spike whenever you taste it, but then it dissipates relatively quickly. That's just common what happens with one carbohydrates. Since honey has so many different carbohydrates, what it ends up doing is it creates kind of a dynamic, long-lasting sweetness curve to where from the first bite to the final swallow and chew, that sweetness is going to stay on your palate because you've got fructose hitting right up front, then glucose a little later, and then sucrose, maltose, maltotriose, all kind of combining to provide a more dynamic and lengthy sweetness curve. So it's something that's a great way to naturally mask flavors, whether that's protein, whether that's fiber, whether that's other nutrients or functional ingredients that you're adding to boost the nutrition. Just by using honey, you're going to have a better chance of masking all those ingredients in a way that's not going to turn off consumers.
Absolutely. And as we know, we're in the era of protein right now. So I'm sure
Yes.
bakers will find this information very useful as they incorporate more dairy or plant-based proteins into their recipes.
Yeah, and we've got a innovation team, and we recently tackled a high protein bread formula, and it was one of the most. We develop about 15, high volume formulas a year, and this was definitely one of the most challenging, just because creating a product that had a high amount of protein in it and still tasted like bread with a touch of sweetness to it without any of those off flavors. It was challenging, but we were able to successfully accomplish it.
Well, that's exciting, but it is
Yep.
challenging. I mean, it's a
Yep.
hurdle R&D teams have to get over when they're incorporating more protein into it. Okay, so I told you we were going to come back to the mouthfeel and texture,
Yes.
and I want to do so now. So can you tell me more about how honey contributes to both of those in baked goods and how it differs from other sweeteners?
Definitely. So honey is always going to help kind of add some bulk or viscosity to it, just because, yes, it's a liquid sweetener, but it also has quite a bit of solids in it. So whenever you use it in a formula or really in a more filling, whether that's a fruit filling, a chocolate filling, in like a snack cake or a pie or something like that, honey is going to provide a little bit of heft and a very warming mouthfeel. Now, it doesn't just work like that in fillings. It's also in breads and products like that. You'll notice it different just by the nature of it being a viscous kind of syrupy ingredient and the concentrations of sugar versus the water, that it's always going to provide a little more rewarding kind of warming mouthfeel.
Exactly. Well, Keith, I just have one last question for you. What is the best way for a baker to get in touch with the National Honey Board and learn more?
Yeah, you can either learn all about honey at honey.com, a very easy website to remember, or you can email me directly. I work with bakers, that's my job. So email me at keith at honey.com. Again, a pretty easy email to remember. If you're interested in that whole wheat high protein bread formula, or really just kind of any product ideas, feel free to reach out to me and we can help you out.
Well, Keith, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really enjoyed learning more about the huge role honey is playing in not only clean label formulations, but also just the pumped up protein and flavor masking. It's just really doing a world of wonder.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, Maddie. I appreciate it.